whether it's, fitness or anything else, whenever we're trying to make changes because we have some kind of pain, whether that's physical pain or emotional pain, psychological pain, whatever it is, we are aware of it when it's there, but the brain doesn't notice absence. Thank you, Chris, for the suggestion of this topic. It is such a good suggestion. And this is the topic of shame. The experience or the feeling of shame, it's so common and it's so foundational. Talking about where it comes from and how to overcome it, how to change it. So shame is, like all other negative emotions, about survival. And it's also a way in which parents and other adults find it easier to control children. And they do that, not necessarily deliberately, but it's an easy way. It comes to hand. It seems to have the desired effect. So, child does something wrong, and making that child feel ashamed is a way of making sure that they don't do it again, that they're sorry, that they toe the line, whatever is involved. And of course, it's going to vary from person to person, from situation to situation. Now, someone else shamed us in our childhoods, right? And then we bring it from our childhood into our lives as adults, and then we do it to ourselves. And we do it to ourselves unconsciously and automatically. And most of the time, we don't realize we're doing it. We're just spending time in it. And we very often project it onto others. What I mean by that is we think someone else is thinking that of us. So we're feeling ashamed because we think they are representing whoever it was in childhood. And they may or may not be thinking. But certainly the experience of shame is all happening inside us. Like everything else, neurons are connecting, chemicals are being produced, and we're feeling those feelings. And then it becomes a cycle, because as we feel the feelings, we join in with thoughts to match those feelings. We add some more proof to it by remembering something or justifying something or coming up with more evidence of why we should be ashamed. And so it perpetuates, and it can be completely paralyzing. The way to address it is, number one, of course, first step is always using logic, answering the logical mind. So the first step is recognizing that shame, it's not an objective thing. Shame is subjective, and we wouldn't know to feel ashamed unless we have references for it. I'm sure you've come across other people who are doing things that you would feel ashamed about, but they don't seem to be ashamed. They seem perfectly fine with it. So some people will be loud and laughing and unashamed to express themselves, and then you'll have other people who are frightened to talk at all. And they look at those people who are loud and they may think, wow, embarrassing, right? The other person's not embarrassed because they don't have a reference for it. So that's the logic of it. So whatever shame you're feeling, number one, it's because of the references you have. It's not an objective thing. It's not like the sky is blue, right? It's not a fact. Then the second piece here is that shame, like guilt and other debilitating emotional states, is not effective or productive. It does not change anything. It does not solve anything. So feeling it is not actually making anything happen outside of you other than negatively affecting your brain and body, and of course, what you're trying to achieve in your life. It's holding you back. So having answered that logic and having decided on that, okay, so I know that it's not a real thing, it's just perception, and it's not helpful. Now let me figure out how to change it. Okay, so you need to get that conscious mind on board first to make that decision. Yes, it does need changing. I don't need to keep it. All right, so once you've done that, here's how to get to it. First of all, ask yourself, if you're feeling ashamed of a particular thing you did, or something you have coming up to, wherever that current experience of shame is coming from, or recent experience of shame is coming from. Imagine pulling your perception back. So you're going into detective mode now, observer mode, rather than being in it and joining in. You're pulling back and think, okay, so let me just think about what exactly is going on here. So if I were to boil it right down, what is it that's so shameful? How do I know that I should feel ashamed about this? Or how do I know I do feel ashamed about this? And don't get lost in the details. Don't get dragged into that. Just observe. Once you've got the answer to that, then your next question is, okay, now where in my childhood did I learn that I should be ashamed? It may not be the same topic. So let's say, I know this has happened to some people, walked out of the loo with toilet paper attached to your heel or something, and you feel embarrassed and ashamed. Now you go, okay, so that feeling of being embarrassed and ashamed, where did I feel it in my childhood? It may not be the toilet paper attached to your shoe, of course. It may be that you were called up in front of class because you hadn't finished your homework. Or it may be that you asked for something and you were shamed for asking for it. It could be anything, but go with the first thing that comes to your mind, because you may think it doesn't make sense, but if it comes to mind, it's connected. If it pops into your mind, the unconscious part of your brain has connected it, even if it doesn't make logical sense. So let's say, for example, okay, so where in my childhood did I feel that feeling of shame, or did I learn to be ashamed? And perhaps the first thing that pops into your mind is a hat. Now, don't discount the hat. Don't go, well, there can't be that. Where else did I feel ashamed? Go, okay, what's that hat about? What's with the hat? And then take a closer look and go, okay, so where did I see that hat, or where's that hat from? And you'll probably find, as those neurons start firing, they start cranking up that neural network, you may think, oh yes, I was wearing that hat when something else happened. But your brain may not have gone straight to the thing that happened. It may have come to the hat first. So that's why I say very important not to discount things. If it pops into your mind, follow that trail. And then, of course, change those memories. And I'll put a link in the description, of course, to do with why we change memories, the science behind changing them, and how to change them, how to find them, how to change them. So then change those memories, then come back to the current situation of shame, the current or recent situation of shame as an adult, and notice if it's still the same. As I think of this thing, do I still feel the shame? And if so, is it as strong as it was? Is it more strong? How do I feel about it now? And if it's still there, if you're still feeling some shame, do the same thing. Okay, so I'm feeling this. Where in my childhood did I feel it? And then something else. Keep doing that back and forth until you can think of the recent or current situation and you don't feel ashamed. Your perception has changed completely. And that's when you know, okay, so I've addressed that. And then, of course, practice the new childhood memories to establish them for long-term storage so that your brain knows those are the new references. So, Chris, I'm going to unmute you if that's all right. Is there anything I've missed out or anything more that you'd like me to talk about on that topic?
That was great. Excellent, Odile. Thank you so much. I've got 2 points or questions, really. I feel a lot of, in my own life, particularly, the shame, a long inherited shame, the shame generationally that came through either mother or father. There's war, before the war, teenagehood for young women in the 20s, that sort of shame, I'm sure. It has come to me as a great gift. Lovely. So that shame from the parents, and to address that. And then you might suggest almost a generic bookmark image moment that you feel really targets, really gets to that insidiousness of this quality shame. So for me, again, I got a strong feeling, not a knowing, it's a feeling that it started very, very early on in babyhood with something like a dirty nappy. Why that? It's what comes to mind. So get to reach. I mean, clearly, I can change the story and make it, and I have, and my childhood is so wonderful. But it's just because it does come up and it continues to They just step in when I'm least expecting, as these things do. There we are, a couple of things there.
Yes, so thank you so much, Chris. Those are some great additions there. To take the generational shame first, so, that family heirloom of shame that's handed down for generations, we can do this little exercise, and I know Steve does this with his clients. It can be very effective. So everyone can follow along with this. Imagine, in fact, yourself as a child. So there's the little you, and it can be any age. And the child is facing away from you. They're facing that where you're facing now. In front of you are both your parents, mother and father, and they're facing the child, the little you. Behind each parent are their parents, and behind each of those parents are their parents. And so the generations go back as far as you can see to the horizon. And inside all of them, inside the little you, inside your parents, and all the parents going, all the generations, it's this dark spot. Perhaps it's in their heart or it's in their head. You can see this kind of shadow in all the people as far back as you can see. And now, from the very back, there's a ball of light that each person has in the back row, as far back as you can see, and they put it into their heart. And that darkness goes away because the light, right? You shine light into darkness, there's no more darkness. So now that back row of people all have this bright light shining out of their hearts instead of the dark spot. And that light in each of them is so bright, it produces another ball of light. So another ball of light is produced. Their bright light is continuing to shine brightly, and now they have a ball. And they pass it on to their children. And so it happens all the way down, along each row, all the way to your grandparents. And then they've got this bright light and the darkness has disappeared. And then they hand their balls of light to your parents. And the same thing happens. Their light shines and there's no more darkness. And that darkness was the shame. And then they hand balls of light, their two balls of light, they hand to the little you. And the little you does the same thing, and now she's shining brightly, and there's no more shame. Can you imagine that?
Yeah.
How does that feel?
That's wonderful.
Yeah. Now, the piece I want to add to this, so once you've done that, and this is for everybody, of course, once you've done that visualization, and allow yourself to feel that feeling of it, now then moving forward, every time you notice you're feeling ashamed in any way, or you're starting to feel doubt or shame or anything, immediately remember that light and turn it up. So you've got this light, but sometimes it dims because something's happened that's starting to make you feel shame. And all that is that the light is starting to dim, and you just need to turn it up. Turn up that dimmer switch so that it's bright. So that imagine that light in your chest is now, you're turning it up, and now it's very bright, and there's no darkness, and shame is the darkness, and darkness cannot survive in light. So then you do that in each moment. So doing this little visualization thing with the light and the shadows and that is not going to suddenly change everything so that you never feel shame. That's not how it works. But making that decision in the moment, when you notice it, turning on that light, remembering, oh yeah, we don't have that anymore. We don't have the shadow. We don't have the shame anymore. That's not a thing anymore. Now we have the light. Doing that in every moment, that's what will create the change over time. And then there will come a time, you've repeated that enough, you've done that enough, that when something would happen that you would normally feel the shame, you won't feel it anymore. And you probably won't even notice it. You probably won't even notice it's gone, because that's the way we are. We notice the pain, but we don't notice when the pain's gone. That's another thing for people who are saying, I'm not seeing any results or in anything. whether it's, fitness or anything else, whenever we're trying to make changes because we have some kind of pain, whether that's physical pain or emotional pain, psychological pain, whatever it is, we are aware of it when it's there, but the brain doesn't notice absence. So when we are no longer in pain, we're moving on to the next pain. Now, what else can I solve? And we don't notice unless we intentionally know. And that happened with me with fibromyalgia. So I was in pain all the time. And the only time I wasn't in pain was when I was in a hot bath. And painkillers didn't help, and all of that. And the doctor said there's no cure, and we don't know what causes it. All of that, went through all of that. Pain, fatigue, all of that. And one day I thought, I'm not in pain anymore. But I hadn't noticed when it went. I just realized I haven't been in pain for a while, but it's not like the pain went and I went, oh, there we go, the pain's gone, because the brain doesn't work that way. So that's just a little extra thing. So, but with the shame is the patch of darkness, and bright light will transform that. And just keep reminding yourself of that and playing that moment. And that is, of course, in addition to changing the childhood memories. So whatever childhood memories created shame, and like Chris, you were saying with the generations, we often witness, we don't have to necessarily experience that ourselves, we can pick it up from the people around us. And so those need changing as well, where they are shining their light and perhaps play the situation. You may want to do stepping stones, play the situations that in which you would have witnessed someone feeling ashamed, and keep the situation, keep the scenario, and make them change so that they are feeling excited, happy, comfortable, whatever it fits that situation. Does that help?
Yeah. Wonderful.
Very good. Thank you for the topic. Good job. All right. Well done, everybody, for being here. Appreciate you all. Appreciate all the questions. And I will see you all same time, same place next week. And lots of love to all of you. Bye-bye now.